This podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. Right now, our lives are on our phones. And with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device service required. Visit AT&T.com/activearmor for details.
Hey, what's up? It's the Nick Handley Show here on your Wednesday. That's my bad, Brock. I didn't have any music ready. See, look, there we go. We're already off to an awful start. Come on. Come on, man. The show has to go on, right?
Yeah, that was my bad.
Yeah, I know. I was going to let you know we got some new imaging happening, and it doesn't have, like, the music rolling into it, so that's kind of my fault there. But, hey, if that's the worst thing that happens all day, then we're going to be just fine.
I was going to say, I haven't done the show in a while, and I was going to ask what all these buttons did.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
I'll be gone for like 3 days and come back, and it's like, okay, what do I do here?
That's why you got to take pictures of the board to remember. This is what I have up in every slot.
Just practice at home. It's what goes on. All right, got a little business to tend to before we get into the show. And of course, appreciate you being with us here on your afternoon. Nick Handley alongside with Brock Workman, as we are going to be talking in just about a half hour to Parker Gabriel. I'm sorry, not Parker. Parker's in the 4 o'clock hour. Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball.com. I want to get to some college baseball talk. But as we've been telling you over the last 24 hours, AM 590 is giving you a chance, the Back to Happy Beaches giveaway. And we're doing the secret word every time at 2 o'clock in the 2 o'clock segment, the first segment right out of the gate, and then the first segment in the 5 o'clock hour. So you got to write these words down, because what you do is you go to that AM 590 Omaha app, which if you don't have, you need to get that. It's absolutely free. You can listen to the show live. You can listen to podcasts. Of course, you can listen to all of the Husker Sports as well. And what we're doing is giving you a chance to win a 4-day, 3-night vacation at any Beaches family resort, and there are several of those to choose from. So you just go to the actual app. You'll see right there the Beaches giveaway right there. As soon as you click on the app, tap that app, and you enter the words that you hear. And the more words that you're able to submit, the better chance you have to win. So the word for this 2 o'clock hour on this Wednesday, the word you need to write down is hat. Yeah, the word is hat. Brock's got one on. I got one on. Hat. That's what you need to know. Go to the AM 590 Omaha app and enter to win. This is a great opportunity. Our Back to Happy Beaches giveaway. Going to be awesome. And again, be sure you're listening for the word in the 2 o'clock hour and in the 5 o'clock hour. And I'll tell you right away, we'll have it in the first segment of the 2 o'clock hour and the first segment of the 5 o'clock hour. But remember, the word is hat. All right, so what's up, Brock?
Not a lot.
Brock is here now. I mean, the new era has begun. It's not like it's new. Brock's been here before, too.
Yeah, you know what this is? I am the starting shooting guard for the Chicago Bulls in 1999. Nobody knows who it is. Nobody cares who it is. We all know who it's not. And you know what? I'm good with that. I'm okay with that.
Brock asked me if I was done crying. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, did I miss something? And then he's like, what? Oh, TJ. I'm like, oh, well, yeah. It stinks to have that time. Like, I get like awkward about it, because the more you start like praising someone and like, appreciating them and talking about how much you enjoyed working with them. I don't know about you, but I do. I start to kind of choke up every now and then. When I worked in Columbus and I was doing a morning show with Sandy Fisher, one of the greatest ladies I'll ever know. And we were kind of doing our goodbyes when I was moving back to Omaha to take on this great opportunity. And as we started like talking, I'm like, all right, we got to stop. We got to stop. Because I started like getting choked up. And as I was talking to TJ and telling him all the great stuff that he did, I found myself starting to get near that little realm of emotion. And so I'm like, okay, Got to quit it. I don't know why. I mean, it's real. It's genuine. It's authentic. Those types of emotion. But I don't know. I get weird to where I like. All right, we got to move on. We got to move on. I don't know. Are you like that at all, or are you just? Do you embrace the tears and the emotion and just get all gushy?
I'd say for the most part, I'm not like that. But there are certainly times when it comes out.
But once you start feeling it come out, are you like, no, okay, let's move on, or do you embrace it?
Yeah, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to let the tears flow and let the emotion linger a little bit. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, all right, next thing.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That's kind of how I was. Like I was talking to TJ after the show yesterday, and we were, saying our goodbyes and everything. It's like, I'm still going to see him. We'll still obviously stay in touch and all of that. But as we started kind of like, hey, appreciate everything you did, and then appreciate everything you did, and then I'm like, all right, I got quickly like, oh, hey, by the way, we should get drinks sometime soon, or we should get dinner sometime soon. Like, try to sort of change the conversation from like, showing your appreciation for one another and just getting it back to like normal dude talk. So yeah, that's kind of where it went. But yeah, I mean, TJ, so
yeah,
good dude, did a great job,
taught me everything I know in here. So.
Yeah. And he's going out. And again, if you follow TJ, do so, because I don't know when he's going to let people know what he's doing. But he starts the next opportunity on Monday. His new venture on Monday. So if not like today or this weekend, I'm sure on Monday you'll know. But he said he's not a huge social media guy. So I don't know.
I mean, I'll do my best TJ impressions in here. Huskers, Royals,
no,
Kevin Garnett.
You couldn't do Royals. You got a Yankees
popular movie I haven't seen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's. I gave him a list of movies that I'm going to check back in with him in a month, and I hope that he's at least crossed 2 of them off the list. He did say he texted me today. Said he did watch Ted Lasso, the entire series.
Oh,
have you checked that out yet?
I haven't had a chance.
It's really good.
I've been watching so much of everything else. So I got through Jupiter's Legacy over the weekend, and
how's that
on Netflix? Is really good.
Yeah.
I never read the comic, but I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And Selena, the series, released the second half of that show.
You're watching that, huh?
I got through that.
Okay, so I saw the previews for it. The girl looks exactly like J-Lo.
Oh, yeah, Christian Stratos.
She looks, because J-Lo, of course, played in the movies Selena.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how the hell did they pull this off? It looks like J-Lo when she was in Selena. Like, because, I mean, J-Lo, that was, 20 years ago, maybe? 15 years ago?
Yeah, I was in the mid to late 90s.
And J-Lo, don't get me wrong, looks good for her age, but, that's 15 years ago. To make someone look like they were when they were 15 or 20 years earlier, that'd be impressive. So.
Yeah, it was very well done.
Excellent. Okay, I'll add some of those to the list.
But I do have one thing that, like, a bone to pick here. And now TJ's gone, so I can't pick with him. So unfortunately, you have to take the full brunt of this.
Lay it on me.
I've been sitting on something for about a month now.
A month?
And it's just kind of eating at me. So I got a clip here. I got to play a clip.
All right.
And then we can talk about this.
Go to the DJ's Dugout inbox. I saw Brock tweeted at us. He was upset we weren't talking WrestleMania. Serious question, did that happen last night?
I believe it did, yes.
Now, did you know that before Brock tweeted?
I did, because I listened to Bill Simmons, and he talks about that stuff, but I didn't listen to the part of the Bill Simmons podcast, because I just can't get into sports that are fake.
Yeah, I'm with. There was a time, like,
there was a time, yes.
11, 12-year-old Nick would.
I agree.
If he had a microphone, he would geek out. Look, I will forever wear this.
It's a much longer clip, but I'm going to fade it down now.
It is.
That hurt me so badly.
I got to the core of you, huh?
Oh, did not like it. Did not like that at all.
Now, if you would have let the clip play longer, I did pay my respect for the type of athletes that all of those wrestlers, both male and female, are. But
you did.
I do kind of agree with where TJ was going. Like, if it's a scripted outcome, to me, I do lose a little bit of that. Okay, I got to see it. But I understand the entertainment value. I have friends that are either my age or older that if WrestleMania is even remotely close to the state of Nebraska, let alone in the state of Nebraska, that they drop everything they're doing and they go to it and they love it. And I've been to, it was funny, said the DJ's Dugout inbox. I think one time we had a softball game on a Sunday. We went to DJ's afterwards, and the place was packed, and I had no idea why. And so I saw a bunch of people going into the party room, and I asked somebody that we knew, and I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Oh, it's WrestleMania." So I get it; it's got a following.
That was the first place I ever watched a WrestleMania was at DJ's Party Room.
Okay.
Before I, earned enough money to order it on pay-per-view the following years for myself.
Comfort of your own home.
For the comfort of my own home.
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect.
I didn't like that. I mean, part of me
honestly did not know it was on that night.
Part of me wanted to drive to the studio that day because we got some steel chairs in the back garage, and I could have just laid a couple of shots in and said, "Is that fake?"
You can't do that if it's not scripted per WWE.
It could be in the script. I'll write it into the script. If you think other sports aren't scripted, something's wrong with you.
Like what?
You think the NBA wasn't like, oh no, we're gonna have the LeBron, AD, you're not going to play. You're going to drop to the 7th seed so we can have you play Golden State in the first round of the play-in games so we can make all this money. Oh, come on. Come on.
Skeptic. So you're saying the only difference between the NBA and the WWE is that they actually they don't pretend they're not scripted.
No.
They're okay.
They don't pretend.
Yeah, I literally had no idea it was on the night before. I was not. Now, mind you, I've had a few more distractions in my life over the last year, so I don't get a chance to watch a lot of stuff at night because I'm being daddy at night. But hey, you know what? There's going to be a time that I'm sure my little guy is going to be interested in wrestling, so I might have to rediscover it because there also I think I told you this before. When I was growing up, I was a little Hulkamaniac, and I wrote a letter to Hulk Hogan when he got sat on by the earthquake. And that devastated me. I was like 8 or 9 years old. I thought he was in like serious condition, and I wrote a letter to him wishing him a speedy recovery.
That was also part of that clip that I played earlier. You mentioned it.
I was a little Hulkamaniac, man. So I got into it. I just at some point I outgrew it. That doesn't mean if you're still into it, there's something wrong with you. That just means you enjoy fine entertainment. That's what it is. It's good entertainment. It's not my entertainment anymore. Used to be. You good? You good? I mean, you got any more you want to throw at me?
It's all right. I will move on. I will put this behind us, and we can start this new venture together on even ground.
I'm sure I get into things that don't move the needle for you. Are you? I mean, do you like watching golf a lot?
No.
Yeah. See, I never used to, but you get older, your interests just change. Yeah. I don't know.
It's the weirdest thing. So my dad and mom, they got a camper up in northern Nebraska now. So they go along for like weekends and stuff out there. And they were gone for a few days, and I got a phone call from the Golf Channel asking me why it wasn't on every TV in our house anymore. Because my dad watches so much of the Golf Channel. It's just constantly on everywhere.
Okay? They're like, is he okay?
Is he, what happened? And it's like, well, he's out. He's like, well, can you just put the Golf Channel on the TV so we can get those numbers?
They're doing a wellness check on your father because the golf just, and I always laughed when I was younger. I'm like, gosh, how could you guys watch this? It's so boring. It's just like something that I'd lay on the couch and fall asleep to.
I can watch like the final round of a major and be all right, but if Jordan Spieth has like a 12-shot lead, it's like, okay, I don't need to watch this.
Yeah, and see, the Byron Nelson is tomorrow. Even 5 years ago, I wouldn't be like, oh, okay, that's not a major. I wouldn't watch it. But you mentioned Jordan Spieth. He's returning from COVID. I'll be watching. I'll be keeping an eye on it because that's where I am at 42 years old as opposed to when I was 22 and could give a rip. So I don't know. The number to the DJ's dugout. Let's try that again. The number to the Limitless Male Medical Hotline, 402-573-0590. That is where your calls and our guests appear. Also, the DJ's dugout inbox open for you on Twitter at NickESPN590. As I mentioned, Kendall Rogers, D1Baseball.com, going to join us in about 15 minutes. I want to get his thoughts. Noticed, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday, the recent Field of 64 for college baseball. And the postseason, the NCAA tournament, actually now has 5 Big Ten teams in their most recent edition of this yesterday. So it's been anywhere between 3 and 4. Lately, it's been 4 teams. Maryland is now added to the mix. So I want to find out from Kendall, is this whole schedule thing for the Big Ten that is different than any other power conference. In fact, different than any other conference, sans MAAC, that did not decide to do any non-conference, just did conference only. Is it actually helping the Big Ten? And we'll get his thoughts on that. We'll get his thoughts on Nebraska and some more college baseball. But coming up next, some really good praise for an area of the football that we expect to be the strength, the defense. Two guys in particular getting some actual national attention that relates to the NFL. We'll tell you about that and how that could be important moving forward coming up next.
Just one secret word could win the AM 590 Back to Happy Beaches giveaway. Listen for the secret words at 2 and 5 on the Nick Handley Show. Then enter on the AM 590 Omaha app.
All right, so whose walk-up song is this?
Do you really not know?
I don't know.
Stone Cold Steve Austin,
That's
man.
so okay. It sounded familiar. I didn't know. Thought it might be Triple H. I don't know. I don't know.
You may hear that one later.
Okay. I see where you're going today, too.
Is it? Yeah. Picked up on that pretty quick.
Pretty fast after your airing of grievances here on the first show, the post-TJ Henning era, with now Brock Workman, who's going to air out his grievances when it comes to pro wrestling. That's fine.
Yeah, fans are going to be so mad at me after like 2 days.
I'm sure
the guy that keeps talking about
I'm
wrestling.
sure we got a lot of wrestling fans in the audience, actually.
Yeah.
Probably more so than soccer fans. That, I bet, is the case. And you know what? If you ask me what would I rather watch, I'd be right there next to you drinking a beer watching WrestleMania as opposed to soccer.
Yeah. Well, you have to wait for this Sunday for WrestleMania Backlash.
WrestleMania Backlash.
Yes, it's the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they don't mess around. They don't waste any time. Get right back at it.
No, and sometimes that's the problem. But we can have Brock's wrestling talk later on.
I feel like
if we need it, but
okay,
because you get rolling on that a little bit, and it's not going to stop.
There's just no stopping that train right there.
There's no stopping that train.
Okay, so the Nebraska football conversations, and during the offseason, I get it. We're going to have a lot of different ones leading up to fall camp because it is sort of that season. It's list season coming up. It's, storyline season, post-spring storyline season. It's attrition watch. All of that's going on. But Dirk Chatelain in the Omaha World Herald, and I want to say this was last week. I couldn't tell you exactly the day, but it mentioned that sort of the next phase for Nebraska football in having success is being able to see essentially, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing what he'd said, to see that next like crop of players represented in the NFL draft, where you're seeing big-time impact players, not only just for Nebraska, but guys that are faring well, that are grading out well when it comes to the next level. Basically, you have NFL dudes, legitimate NFL dudes on your team. That's where Nebraska has kind of lacked. Now, Brendan Hymas and Matt Farniok, they both get drafted, but they're towards the back end of the draft. We've seen Nebraska miss out and break a pretty lengthy streak. We've seen Nebraska not really have that impact in sort of the first 3 rounds as of late. And so to try to get back there is something that not only helps with future recruiting, but it kind of gives you an idea of the success and the level of success that you're having. Now, are there teams that are able to put guys into the NFL but still maybe have modest success as opposed to, great 11, 12-win seasons? Yeah, there are those examples. But you got to start seeing players that are on the radar and that are already grading out. Now, we can talk about mock drafts, and I know there was one year that Lamar Jackson, the corner, not Baltimore Ravens quarterback, but Lamar Jackson for Nebraska, in one mock draft right around this time going into his final season was actually, I want to say it was CBS Sports. In fact, I know it was CBS Sports. They had him as like the 28th or 29th pick. And that was exciting. Like, I remember talking about that. I'm like, wow, Lamar Jackson is getting a lot of praise. But that was from a mock draft. And you're kind of going off of the body work. You're kind of going off of what they could project to be. And again, it's not an exact science. And what I'm about to tell you is also not an exact science, but a lot of different metrics go into, and a lot of you have heard Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus has not one but two Nebraska defensive players in their top 10 position groups of returning players. The highest ranked Nebraska player is actually in the top 10 returning linebackers in college football. And at number 4 is JoJo Domann. And this is what Pro Football Focus says about JoJo Domann. Says, Domann mans a hybrid role in the Huskers defense. He'll line up at outside linebacker or in the slot, the latter being where he has played most often. There's a reasonable case that he should be on the safety/slot list, but his listed position by the team is outside linebacker, so here we are. Domann's coverage prowess has been apparent ever since he took on a major role in 2019. Over the past 2 seasons, he's recorded an 86.6 coverage grade, 9 forced incompletions, and 19 passing stops. The 6'1", 230-pound, sixth-year senior also made major strides in run defense in 2020, raising his grade from 56.3 to 73.5. So JoJo Domann getting some praise behind guys like, let's see, we got Mike Jones of LSU, Carlton Marshall of Troy, and the guy for Washington who I wouldn't even begin to know how to pronounce his name. But, yeah, I mean, sitting there at number 4, that's pretty good to see. And I think a lot of us would say, yeah, JoJo Domann's a big part of this defense, and the success of this defense, a lot of that does hinge on the level of play that you get from JoJo Domann. Also, in the top 10 returning players at their position, according to Pro Football Focus, we go to the interior defensive lineman category, and at number 8, just inside the top 10, is one Ben Stille. And here's what it says about Ben. After playing defensive end for the entirety of his career, the 6'5", 295-pound Stille kicked inside to defensive tackle in 2020 and had the best season of his career. He put up a 79.0 Pro Football Focus grade, nearly 9 grading points higher than his previous career best. Stille was one of the more productive pass rushing interior defensive linemen in the Power 5, recording an 81.5 grade in that facet, which ranked behind only Alabama's Christian Barmore and Ohio State's Haskell Garrett. So what does all this mean? Well, it means that you have 2 guys on the defensive side of the football on what we all know to be the strength of this team, at least going into the season, because of the amount of experience there. What we know about this type of praise, though, is these are guys that are heavily on NFL scouts' radar. And a lot of this is going to depend on how they play out this season, obviously. There's a reason that I think JoJo Domann came back, because he knows, and there's an example right there of NFL scouts wanting to see more, but NFL scouts that are definitely intrigued. Ben Stille, again, a guy with his size, a guy that could have said, all right, I'm good, got my degree, I don't need to come back another year, is coming back for, I would think, a similar reason, knowing that, first of all, for Ben Stille, you get a chance to play in front of the home state again with most likely an entire crowd now finally watching you. But the bigger picture is there's a body there. There's a guy who had maybe his best overall productive season, and now, he is on the radars of NFL scouts, so people want to see another year of him on the interior, and this is a great opportunity for him to do so. If you get these guys, again, in the pro conversation, the draft conversation, and there are more to follow, I think Cam Taylor-Britt is going to be another guy that is going to be a part of that conversation. This is the type of improvement that I think you want to see. Not only do you want to see the improvement in production when it does come to the offense and the defense, but when you start having guys that are grading out very well in pro football metrics, that bodes very well for what you can kind of build off of on either side of the football. So I think it is interesting that Nebraska defensively looks strong, and you're getting these guys that are already getting high marks on Pro Football Focus's returning players watch list. I think that's great. And it's not this is not like a Doak Walker Award watch list where there's like 1,000 guys. I mean, these are some very sharp metrics that go into trying to evaluate pro football talent. It's far beyond my comprehension. That's what these guys do, and they've identified two on the Nebraska defense, which I think is great. We're going to get more into that. I want to talk some college baseball. Coming up next, got Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball.com set to join us right after this.
Nick Hanley Show podcasts are now available on the new AM 590 app, powered by Woodhouse Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. Download now from the App Store or Google Play.
All right, college baseball on the minds of lots of people here in the state of Nebraska. The Huskers will be taking on Northwestern Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from Haymarket Park. Sounds like it's going to happen, too. I know Northwestern was on a 2-week pause with some contact tracing and COVID complications, but all signs pointing to a return for Northwestern. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll have all those games right here for you, right here on your home for Husker Sports, AM 590. As we talk some Huskers and Big Ten baseball and college baseball, we welcome in of D1Baseball.com, Kendall Rogers, who joins me here on the Limitless Male Medical Hotline. Kendall, I want to ask you, and based on the most recent Field of 64 projections that you guys put out yesterday, if you would tell me or have told me at the beginning of the season, based on the Big Ten not playing a schedule model that would allow them to play non-conference or have a conference tournament, and yet you told me that they would have the same amount of teams in the NCAA tournament as the Big 12, I would have thought you were crazy. But on your guys' most recent projection, that's where it is.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is kind of twofold, right? I mean, I think when you look at the Big 12, Oklahoma has not been the team we thought they would be. They're playing better now, and they're certainly a team to watch down the stretch. But they got off to a really slow start. Kansas State out of the Big 12 got off to a really slow start, and they're not in the mix. And so, we came into the season with the expectation those two teams would probably be in the mix. But I think when you look at the Big Ten, it'll be very interesting to me to see how the committee views this conference. From my standpoint, from the eyeball test, I feel like this team is 4 or 5 postseason teams deep. Now, the question is, when the committee gets in that room or gets on Zoom now, I guess you'd say, next weekend or in 2 weekends, and they go through these teams, do they look at these teams in the same vein as the ACC and SEC, or do they kind of separate them from the rest of the pack? And I think we're going to find out a lot when they announce the host Friday morning. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out a lot on, hey, how much are they valuing RPI? If they're valuing RPI, which makes no sense in the Big Ten because they're not playing non-conference games, then the Big Ten could be in for some heartbreak on Selection Monday. But we'll find out how that kind of pans out. But again, I like Indiana. I think Nebraska's a really solid club. Michigan certainly is a good team. And then I think you look in Iowa and Maryland as both quality clubs, and with Maryland kind of the team I expect to be on the rise down the stretch. So right now, I think 5 teams should get in, and right now the bubble is pretty small, so that bodes well. But we all know, right, when you get into conference tournaments, the Big Ten's not even one. When you get into conference tournaments, you start to get stolen bids. And so Big Ten teams at the bottom there will definitely need to watch stolen bids.
Well, and I know we're all kind of looking ahead here at Nebraska's remaining schedule with Northwestern this weekend. Then they have a very competitive pod out there in Bloomington taking on Indiana and Ohio State. And then as everybody is playing in their conference tournaments, Nebraska will be hosting Michigan for a 3-game series in Lincoln. I mean, do you feel like that weekend, the way things have kind of playing out, could very well decide the conference overall, or at least whether a team goes from a 3 to a 2 seed or even higher?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think right now, I don't think I expect any Big Ten teams to host. So right now, you're looking at a best case scenario of being a 2 seed, or there's a possibility that one of these Big Ten teams could go on the road as a 1. But I think for the most part, they're all going to be 2s. And quite frankly, as strange as it sounds, like if you're playing for a 2 and 3, it doesn't really matter. Some coaches would want to be the home team in the first game, but other than that, I mean, the seeds are pretty much the same, other than the who's the home team in the first game. And so right now, it's all about the conference championship because a lot of these teams are kind of locked into the same spots. And so let's say Nebraska got on a big run, won the conference and finished like red hot. Yeah, maybe they could be a 1 seed somewhere, but right now I think you're looking at all these teams for the most part being 2s, with Maryland and Iowa probably being 3s.
I know we were all trying to make sense of how not playing non-conference in a postseason tournament, a conference tournament, would impact the Big Ten. And I know myself personally, Kendall, I thought it was a big-time miss for the Big Ten, especially not having a conference tournament. And I just felt like they were going to be continuing to have to play catch-up with the rest of the power conferences and really all of college baseball. Has it been as bad as maybe some like myself would have thought? I mean, do you think that there maybe has even been some benefits to what the Big Ten has done?
I wouldn't say there's any benefit. I would say I don't think it's been as big of an issue as I thought it might be. I think we all kind of look around this league when we see some of these teams and go, okay, Nebraska's good, Michigan's good, Indiana's good. And it all also depends on, what kind of talent these teams have. When you look at Nebraska, you look at the Jackson Hallmarks, you look at the Cade Poviches and the Spencer Schwellenbachs, and then you look at Indiana with McCade Brown and company, Grant Richardson. Those are really talented clubs. So, I wouldn't say it's really hurt them. It hasn't helped them, certainly, but it hasn't hurt them. And that actually does surprise me a little bit. I think, from talking to committee members off the record, it doesn't seem like people view the Big Ten as any less than any of these other leagues. So I would say this. I think, in hindsight, the Big Ten did make a grave mistake not playing non-conference games. Had they played non-conference games, and let's say Nebraska played Oregon State in surprise a few times and beat them, or went down to Texas and played, Texas Tech or somebody and won a couple of games. I mean, we're talking about a Nebraska team that not only would be in the potential position to host, but they might be a slam dunk to host at this point, depending on how those first few weeks went.
Talking to Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball.com. Okay, so Kendall, you mentioned the host sites will be unveiled, or at least the first series of this. How is this all working? I know 20 are selected, then that's kind of narrowed down. How can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so they're going to pick 20 teams to choose from on selections or the selection eve that Sunday night when they select the actual 16 hosts. So they'll have 20 teams they'll pick, and they'll take 16 out of those 20. So what they're doing, they're giving themselves some cushion in case one of the, a couple of those teams kind of collapse over the next couple of weeks. So I think it makes sense. I mean, I would have gone out to 25 because then at that point, you really start to encompass everyone that would be in the hosting mix to begin with, whereas now at 20, you're going to knock out some teams that probably should be in the mix. But that's the way it's going to pan out. I'm just very curious, what do they do with Conference USA? You've got, Southern Miss, Charlotte, La Tech, all host worthy. How do you separate those teams? What do you do in the ACC? You've got Pitt as a slam dunk host. But you also got Florida State and Louisville as, eyeball test teams that pass the eyeball test, but the RPI isn't anywhere near where it needs to be. So how the committee handles those two situations in particular are really interesting to me.
I know 2 weeks ago you guys had Nebraska as the 16 seed, the very last host, and then they lay an egg against Rutgers. But when you look at Nebraska to that point, what all kind of lined up for you to kind of look at them as that final number one seed?
Well, I think when we look back, I think for the most part, the RPI was there. I felt like if they won that league, they would get a host. And so, if they're in position to get a host, I would think they'd be a top 16. So, clearly things are a little different than they were. The RPI is down to 68. So it's not, again, I would say I wouldn't even look at the RPI, but the committee's going to at least, they're going to slip up at some point and mention the RPI as one of these teams. And so you at least have to glance at that. But I thought, in all honesty, and this is why I would have gone out to 25, is the team that won the Big Ten for me would have absolutely been in the mix for a host site. And I'll be very interested to see if Indiana's on that list or if Nebraska's on that list here in a couple of days. I think the Big Ten champ should be on there.
Well, and when, as best as too, when it does come to being one of those teams on the list, obviously these are teams that have to be in good standing up based on merit in their play on the field. We understand that. But as far as the the location, the facilities themselves, and even the COVID, safety protocols too. How much of an impact do you know that is going to have on these decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope almost 95% of it's merit. I mean, I think even though you're having predetermined sites, to me, other than the Big Ten teams, like, you should have to earn it. Like, I don't care where you're located.
Yeah.
If you haven't earned the right to do it, you haven't earned the right to do it. What was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, where the West Coast got 2 hosts, and that's all they deserve. So I think when you look at the host sites this year, if you don't have the metrics and the eyeball tests and things like that, you have no business hosting. So I think it's going to be majority merit. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if there's a location pick in there somewhere, but I think for the most part it's going to be merit based.
Kendall, just a quick look beyond the Big Ten too, and just seeing Arkansas as kind of that cinch pipe #1 team. I mean, they look so good. I mean, if this team does not win a national championship, how surprised will you be?
I'm not sure how surprised I'll be, because I think anytime you get to Omaha, I think it's a total crapshoot. I know that's like the politically correct answer to say, but I mean, it is the truth, right? I mean,
yeah.
How many? Yeah, I think it's #1 seeds won it over the last 2 decades in Omaha. So it's just very difficult to win the College World Series. With that said, I think when you look at this team overall, where you can really get Arkansas is if you can get to the #3 starter. Well, guess what format favors teams that may only have 2 starters. It's the College World Series format. If you can win the first 2 games of Patrick Wicklander and Peyton Pallette, like, you don't even have to throw to #3 guy. What was it, Arizona, the year they won under Andy Lopez? Arizona used 3 pitchers in Omaha. That's all they had to use.
Yep.
And so you can get through that bracket like that. I think they're that offense is electric. They do rely a little bit on the long ball sometimes, and we all know that's not the right formula at TD Ameritrade, but they can also hit in the gap. They can run a little bit. And so, would I say I'm being surprised? Probably not, but boy, this is a really good team.
Vanderbilt make a strong case for one of those teams as well?
Yeah, I mean, they would be in the mix for me. And it all hinges kind of on Jack Leiter, right? I mean, Jack Leiter was on the shelf last weekend, taking a little bit of a break for arm fatigue. Does he come back this weekend? Is he able to pitch in the postseason? If Jack Leiter isn't able to pitch, I don't think Vanderbilt for me is in the national title mix. I just think when you take a guy like that out of the rotation, that just puts so much pressure on a guy like a Kumar Rocker. And so I would take Vandy out of that mix if that happens. Mississippi State for me is really intriguing. I think you look at those guys offensively. They don't have just an overwhelming offense, but Tanner Allen, Logan Tanner, Rowdy Jordan, guys like that. They get big clutch hits. And Mississippi State probably has the deepest pitching staff in college baseball. So I'm not so sure if outside of Arkansas, Mississippi State isn't the team I kind of have the most confidence in right now.
Well, it's going to be a fun month to see how it all kind of plays out. Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball.com joining us. Kendall, appreciate you coming on, man. Have a great rest of the week.
You got it, fellas. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, wanted to take a look at what is ahead for Nebraska right now. Big Ten standings as they look right now. We'll get into that right after the break.
4 days, 3 nights at a Beaches family resort. The AM 590 Back to Happy Beaches giveaway. Listen for the secret words at 2 and 5 on the Nick Handley Show. Then enter on the AM 590 Omaha app.
So here in Will Bolt talk earlier today, Nebraska, it seems like they are on schedule to take on Northwestern. Northwestern was in a 2-week COVID pause. They were entering that pause on a 5-game losing streak, and so they appear to be in the clear and should be making their way to Lincoln tomorrow, I believe. And then the first game will be a Friday night. Then you got Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, 3-game series between Nebraska and Northwestern. So as the standings are right now, Nebraska trails Indiana by a half a game, and then it's Michigan that is just behind Nebraska by a half a game. Michigan's a full game out of first place. Then you've got Iowa lurking behind 3 games out of first, and Maryland 3 games out of first. And the reason I bring up Iowa is out of the 5 teams that are within reach, and that would be Indiana, Nebraska, Michigan, Iowa, Maryland. Iowa probably has the most favorable schedule just based on the conference standings. So if some teams do fall back. Now, remember, Nebraska still has 2 games with Indiana in that pod out in Bloomington in 2 weeks. And then they wrap up the regular season in Lincoln against Michigan. Indiana's got a pretty challenging schedule as well. Indiana plays Michigan this weekend in a 3-game series. So there is a scenario that you could see Nebraska, if they could take care of business this weekend, could reclaim first place. But again, Iowa could gain more games from the leader to where they might only be maybe 1 or 2 back. Iowa's schedule that remains right now is the following. They are taking on Illinois, and Illinois is not a bad team. Illinois can swing it with just about anybody. They just don't have great pitching. So Iowa's got Illinois this weekend. Then they've got Northwestern, where they will be on the road taking on Northwestern. Then they wrap up against Michigan State. So, those are some series that Iowa could have some success in. Michigan will play Nebraska. Will play Indiana. Indiana plays Michigan this weekend. Then Nebraska and Ohio State. And Indiana wraps up regular season play against Ohio State as well. So not just in that Maryland. So they've got Maryland as well. So, and Maryland's a good team. So there's a lot going on there with what is going to be shaken out in the Big Ten. All right, coming up, 3 o'clock hour, schedule drop day in the NFL. We will give you what we know, what's been leaked out. We'll also be talking to John Natal of the Omaha World Herald, all coming up.